leave at the time we have to leave in order to make it to work on time. Correct? That type of urgency. Because if we don't make it to work at the time we're supposed to be there, then we are at jeopardy of losing our job. We are at risk to lose our jobs. So this demands even more urgency than that. There's no doubt about it. This demands even more urgency than that. Now, I'm not saying that we're supposed to ignore our jobs and ignore the urgency there and ignore the urgencies in other aspects of our lives. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is what should be on the top of our list, and the priority is to understand and know that my time here is very limited. And when this time ends, it's over for me. It's over for me. Okay? So the benefit of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala making Asr as an oath also is to emphasize that rushed nature, how quickly our lives is going to go. And money, okay, food, shelter, health, even health, we can lose it, right? We can lose our jobs. We may lose the ability to feed ourselves. We may lose our health. But we generally, for the most part, we can get those back. We can get our job back. We can get another job, right? We can eat another meal later, right? We can get healthy again, right? Generally, this is the case. But this is not the case with time. This is not the case with time. Once time is gone, that's it. And this is why I said the youth here will probably benefit more than us. Allah knows best, because they have that advantage of being youthful. So, I don't know if this joke is going to be relevant, but there's no such thing as PIM particles. The youth, you guys know what PIM particles are from that movie that we all watched? No? All right. But anyways, there is no time machine. There is no magic formula that's going to allow us to get our time back. Okay? We need to understand this. And another thing we need to understand that's very relevant to us is that we chase after the dunya. We chase after the dunya. Everybody does it. And we work hard and we work hours and we plan and we plan and we study and we earn degrees and we research and we figure out ways to make money. But understand that the generation before us did the same exact thing. And the generation before them did the same exact thing. And the generation before them did the same exact thing. The nation before ours did the same exact thing. And the nation before them did the same exact thing. Generation after generation, humanity has always chased, went after, sought after the temporary, the wealth, the fame, the fortune. What's temporary? Generation after generation. And generation after generation, people have passed away. Generation after generation, people have passed away. So when and I'm not saying this is not something we shouldn't do. Sure, get your degrees, get your good job, make a good salary, take care of your family, absolutely. But not to forget that the generation before me did the same exact thing. And the generation before them did the same exact thing. Now, what is their state? Allah knows, and they know. So sooner or later, there's going to be somebody else sitting here talking about something very similar, and I may not be here, for example, right? Or you may not be here, and somebody's sitting in your spot. That's just the reality. So when we understand the reality of this, we cannot let it go to waste. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about time. So that we don't let it go to waste. That we do not let it go to waste, that we use it to the best of our abilities. Now, every one of us has different abilities. Every one of us is capable of doing different things. So we do the best that we can to the best of our abilities. Now, the time when we say that mankind is in a state of khusr, in a state of drastic loss, the proof for that is time itself. Time itself is a proof that mankind is at a drastic loss. If you look at every nation that existed on this earth, right? The greatest nations rose and fell. The greatest nations rose and fell. You're talking about nations that were world powers, right? We're talking about, for example, nations that had technology like the Egyptians. At the time, ancient Egyptians. At the time, nobody else had technology like that. Even today, scientists marvel at how they built the pyramids. How did they move these multi-ton pieces of stone from one area of the country to the other and pile it upon one another with such precision. Even today's time, they are baffled by this. You have civilizations like the Greeks and the Romans and the Persians. They came and they went. Right? Look at Greek today. It's not the same civilization, but their state is gone, right? The British Empire used to rule the known world. Right? Now it's back to the little island that they started from. Every nation rises and falls. The Islamic Empire, the Muslim world, the Ummah, we were powerful at one point. Look at us now. Right? We are completely scattered. We're completely scattered. We're not unified. There's no unification. Everybody's doing their own thing. There's factionalization. So even nations rise and fall. Even nations come and go. Same with us. We are going to one day go, one day we're going to leave. And we need to understand and know that this time is a proof for us that it's going to be gone. One day it's going to be gone. So the reality of it has to be something that is in our minds at all time. And this is very important. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues this surah by saying, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, except those who have iman. وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Very, very important. This is why the scholars have said that Surah Asr summarizes the Quran so well and summarizes Islam. If you were to have one of the scholars, I forget which one it was, one of the Imams, he stated that if there was just one surah that was to be revealed, Surah Asr would be enough. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues in the surah and He says, except those who have iman. Okay? This iman that we have and that we claim to have has to manifest. You understand? Because if you think about it, those who have iman, right, and do good deeds, doing good deeds, doesn't it mean that you must have iman? It means that. It means that to do good deeds, you must have iman. Right? You do the good deeds for the pleasure of Allah, for the sake of Allah. That's what it means to do a good deed. Okay? And then He says, those who enjoin in the truth. Isn't enjoining in the truth when we are learning about Allah, when we are learning about Islam, when we are practicing and we are fulfilling the obligations He obligated us to do and staying away from the prohibitions, and we're learning about this and we're teaching it to one another, this is the truth. This is all part of iman. And He says those who enjoin in patience, having sabr, is also a part of iman. So iman is the fruit. If we want to have iman, this is very important, especially in the youth. And maybe in the adults too, of course. But I know when I was in college, at that time we were learning about Islam. And we're learning about the deen. And iman was a question. How do I get my iman up? How do I get my iman up? How do I get my iman up? Right? And oftentimes people go to different sources. Sometimes they go, go to things like nasheeds. Maybe that'll give me a iman boost. Okay? Maybe I'll go to a class, that'll give me a iman boost. Okay? Maybe I'll hang out with good people, that'll give me an iman boost. And yes, all of these will generally help a person's iman. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, okay, for those who have iman, okay, they are the ones who do good deeds. So if you want to increase your iman, you increase your good deeds. There's no doubt about it. If you start praying more, your iman's going to go up. Okay, and I'm talking about real prayer. Worshipping Allah. Not just the action. Not just the limbs moving up and down and you're finishing the obligation. We're talking about connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And when you are enjoining in truth with one another. And when you're having patience. And you're telling one another to have patience as well. These are very important. The thing is, regarding truth, every person may go through a time period where doubts enter their mind. It may be when they're young, it may be when they're old, Allah knows best. But doubts may enter their mind. Or a person who wants to enter Islam, they may not enter because of doubts in their mind. Okay? So enjoining in truth and teaching one another in truth is going to remove that doubt. Same thing with patience. Every single one of us is going to go through time periods in our lives where patience is very important. Every one of us. And for example, Hajj. Okay? An amazing opportunity for people that get to go to Hajj. An amazing act of ibadah. But man, patience is tested. Patience is tested. Right? You may have a certain amount of patience. Somebody else may have less than that. And because of that, that's going to affect you. You understand? That's one example. Now look at our lives. We're going to go through trials and tribulation our entire life. It's going to happen. And you know, we say that this is a trial from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? When we go through hardship. It is. At the same time, it's also an expiation. Maybe we have done a type of sin. Maybe we did something wrong sometime or another that needs expiation. And Allah expiates it by causing us to go through this hardship now, as opposed to going through the hardship in the grave, or as opposed to going through the hardship in the hereafter, right? So we have to understand that too. That yes, trials are tests, but they are also a removing of sins for us. Okay? So that also implies that we do our best to avoid sins. Otherwise, these trials are going to happen. And if they don't happen here, they're going to happen in the qabr, in the grave. And if it doesn't happen in the qabr, or if it's not enough in the qabr, well, it will happen in the qabr if the person, passes away with sins, and Allah doesn't forgive them. Then it's going to continue in the akhirah. So we want to understand that our trials that we may come across, is a trial from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we should bear with patience. Along with that, understand that it could be a result of our own deeds that we did in the past. Our own hands have caused this trial to befall us. So that way we stay away from committing sins as much as we can. And if we commit sins, Allah has given us a way to ask for forgiveness. Allah has given us a way to remove it by making tawbah. Okay? So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us except those who enjoin in truth and enjoin in patience, it also implies that, first of all, it implies that we understand, but it also implies that we remind one another. This is very important, that we remind one another. Your family members, your friends, neighbors, just colleagues. A person may be going through a hard time. It is imperative that we do our best to remind one another of holding on to patience. Okay? These Sahaba, when they used to meet each other and greet each other, they said that they wouldn't leave until they recited this surah as a reminder. Right? Many, many reminders in this surah. First of all, time is of the essence, right? Time is very valuable. It's going to go away. One day I'm going to be gone. Okay? And because of this time, we are in this horrible state, khusr. And that to make the best of this state, we have to have iman, right? And to do good deeds, and to teach one another and help one another in the truth, and to help one another in patience. These are all imperative. This is why the scholar said that this surah is so heavy, that it means so much. Okay, that has such value. Now, this surah, and when we're saying that we have iman, and we're saying that we're going to do good, and we're saying that we're going to enjoin in truth and enjoin in patience, also means that we're not afraid to practice our Islam. You understand? Because a person who has a strong belief in something is not afraid to express it. For example, if a person believes eating animals is not a good thing, they are not afraid to express it in order to get other people to, change their views on killing animals. Okay? So as Muslims, we should not be afraid to practice our religion. How many times have I heard from people that say, I don't have time to pray at work? That's not an excuse. Or I can't grow my beard out because of work. That's not an excuse. right? So we have the truth from the creator of the heavens and the earth, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't have an excuse to say that our Islam can be pushed aside so that we can focus on the dunya. That's not right. What deserves more is that we practice our Islam. Are you waving at me? No? Okay. What deserves more is that we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's very important. So this enjoining in doing the good deeds, enjoining in the truth, and enjoining in patience, it means practicing our religion. Okay? You're driving, you forgot to pray at work or wherever, and now in the middle of the road, time's going to go soon. Maybe be careful, but don't be shy to pray. If you have to pray outside, you pray outside. You carry a musalla with you. Right? Be careful, because today's time is a little rough, but don't be afraid. Okay? The Salaf, which are our pious predecessors, the scholars that came before us, they would recommend that, that statement that today's a new day, right? That statement, today's a new day. People say this. Or tomorrow's a new day, right? Or tomorrow, that movie by the little girl singing about tomorrow, and how she loves tomorrow, right? The Salaf has stated that at the end of each day, or at the beginning of the next day, we should be more aware of what we have lost. That what we cannot gain back. That time we cannot gain back. Right? And to use that next day to plan better. To plan better. Okay? Now, for us to change or to use our time wisely, one of the tricks of shaitan may say that you have to change everything 100%. You have to get up before Fajr, pray Tahajjud, stay up, pray Fajr, stay up, pray Salah after the sun rises, right? Recite Quran, recite 3 juz a day, 5 juz a day, otherwise it's not enough. Your time is wasted. Okay? This is a trick of shaitan to what is it called? Burn you out. Okay? So a person that doesn't regularly recite a juz of Quran a day, the next day is going to be something of a hard thing to do for them. It's going to be hard. So you don't have to let shaitan trick you into thinking that you have to accomplish this. But you start off small. You change one little thing and you make sure that little thing stays your entire life. Right? You say, okay, I'm going to read one verse of the Quran. That's going to be the one thing I change today. And tomorrow you read it and you don't change it. You change your entire course of your life, by the way. How many rewards are you getting for reciting that one verse? And just for reciting it. Now if you understand it. Now if you are contemplating on it. Imagine all that rewards you're gaining just by that one thing you change in your life. Your entire life has changed. The direction of your life has changed. So you start with something small. Don't let shaitan overwhelm you. Don't let his whisperings overwhelm you. And you build upon it. You build upon it. Okay? And you may fail. That's life. Right? You hear the billionaires say that success only comes after failing over and over and over and over again. You may fail. You may decide to read one ayah today, and tomorrow you may forget. Doesn't mean that you should quit altogether. You restart. Right? You continue. That's not failing. Your effort, and you're forgetting to put that effort in, or for some reason missing that opportunity to put that effort in, that's not failing. Failing is when you quit completely. That's failing. Right? When you say, I'm going to take Islamic classes, and the semester overwhelms you because you didn't manage your time properly. I'm laughing because I know somebody. And you quit completely. That I don't have time for this. Now that's failure, man. That's not the case. We don't do that, okay? We keep trying to the best of our abilities, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows our abilities, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what we're doing and how much we're struggling and how much we're trying, okay? So don't quit, you continue. And you build upon it. One thing I always tell myself, and I always, whenever I get the chance, I always tell the audience here, is that don't compare yourself with somebody else who's accomplished so much, right? And rather compare yourself to yourself. Right? Compare yourself today to yesterday. If you are not happy with your change, then do something about it. Compare yourself to you last month. If you're not happy with where your change is, then do something about it. Compare yourself to last year. If you're not happy with where you are today compared to where you are last year, then do something about it. Okay? That should be like something that we're always doing, reevaluating ourselves and then changing so that we can become better. And remember, time is very valuable. The more we do this and the more we can change, the more benefits, inshallah, we will receive from it. Also, I mentioned the truth is supposed to help us get away from doubts. All of us at one point in an or another in our lives may have some doubts. This is the work of shaitan. It's going to happen. So when we enjoin one another in truth, then we are removing doubts. Similarly, when we are enjoining one another in patience, we are removing temptation. Patience is also important in temptation. Right? We may see something we like that we're not supposed to have, or we're not supposed to look at, or we're not supposed to desire. Maybe my brother has something that I want. Right? Maybe he has a house that I really want, or a car. So this is temptation. So we also teach one another that having patience means you have patience against what you desire. Okay? So you can always ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what you want. But don't try to seek things, don't try to fulfill your desires and temptations by things that Allah will not, that will be displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't try to fulfill these temptations by things that are displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These two reasons, doubt and temptation, are reasons people don't come into Islam. They may doubt that Islam is the truth, or they may have temptation that they can't let go. Maybe they love partying, maybe they love drinking, maybe they love smoking. You know? So these things are things that are very heavy. Okay. All right. Oh, sorry, my thing is going the wrong way. Okay. Just to put a little practical understanding of time. Okay, this is something I evaluated for myself, and this may apply to you too, and for many of us, this will apply actually. There's how many hours in a day? 24. Okay, I know we're tired, so I'm going to answer the question. It's an easy question. 24 hours a day. Okay. Does somebody who is successful have more hours than somebody who's not? No. Right? Somebody that's worshiping Allah more than us, better than us, learning about the deen, have more time than a person that's not? Absolutely not. It's all about time management. Okay? There's 24 hours in a day. You sleep how many hours? I know me, I got to get my 8 hours of sleep. I need my 8 hours. If I don't have 8 hours, I can't think in the morning. Right? I need to rejuvenate. Some people can sleep less, 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours. Some need more. You know, kids, they need 9, 10, 12 hours. Right? Some need more. So you take 8 hours and you remove that from the 24, you got 16 hours left. Work in school. 8 hours. Let's say 8 hours. Some work more, some work less, some go to school longer, some go to school less. Let's just average 8 hours. Right? You take 8 hours from that 16, you got 8 hours left. Now you have to commute to work and you have to commute back. If each way is half an hour, or each way is an hour. There was one point in my life I commuted an hour both ways, hour and a half both ways. Right? You lose 2 more hours. You got 6 hours left in the daytime. 6 hours. Let's say you use just 2 for eating. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Just 2. How many is left? 4. Now what about getting up in the morning, brushing our teeth, going to the bathroom, showering, making sure we're presentable, making sure we have the right clothing on? Another hour possibly. Right? How many hours left? 3. Then you got to cook food. You got to feed your kids. Right? You got to clothe your kids. You got to take care of your family. Man, that time is just going, gone. Right? At the end of the day, going, gone. So if we are in a cycle where we are just doing, because a lot of the adults and kids and the younger ones too, especially nowadays, We have our schedule. We follow, right? Get up, pray Fajr, do whatever you do after or before. You go to work, you eat breakfast, you get dressed, you go to work. After work, you go shopping, groceries. You come home, cook dinner, or if his dinner's made, you eat dinner, do whatever you do after dinner, go back to bed. And that's just continuing 24 hours. So a lot of us live in a cycle. Is any of us going to be happy or satisfied when we return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, let's say we took those 3 hours a day and we worshipped Allah, just for those 3 hours a day. Is any of us going to be satisfied saying that we worshipped Allah 3 hours a day our entire lives? None of us will be. That's not enough. There's never enough that we can do. There's never enough that we can do to ensure our what's going to happen on the Day of Judgment. We can always be hopeful, and just to take that 3 hours. I'm not. You forget watching TV. You skip that. You get rid of that. You stop reading the paper. You stop going online, social media, whatever, and you decide to use that 3 hours solely for the worship of Allah. I do not think there's going to be many people that are satisfied with that. Okay. Now I want to ask you a question. Is there a way that you can take those 8 hours that you sleep, and those 8 hours that you work, and those 8 hours that you prepare for, well, not 8 hours, but those 2 hours that you commute, and that 1 hour that you cook or shop, or 2 hours that you cook or shop? Is there any way for you to take that and turn it into worship? I want you guys to answer that to me. First, yes or no? There is. You guys know there is. How? Tell me how, please. Just call it out. Okay, dhikr is one. What is something easier than dhikr? I don't want to say dhikr is not easy, but what is it? Anybody else want to say something else? Sisters? Okay, hold that thought. Okay? Hold that thought. So let's talk about freeing up time. This is just a quick overview of something we talked about last time. Just a little quick overview. The best way to free up time, the best way is you have to make a schedule. You have to make a schedule. You may make a schedule a week in advance, a month in advance, even the day before, so that you know what to do with your time. Okay? For example, Benjamin Franklin, the night before, right, he went to bed, he cleaned up his desk, make sure it was clean, prepared for the next day. And he has a notebook, where he would write down what he would have to accomplish the next day. Every night he did this. Okay? You may be wanting to do this, or you may not. Maybe you want to plan a week in advance. My next week I'm going to plan my time. Okay? This frees up the mind. So you don't have to worry about, okay, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. And don't make to-do lists. They don't work. You say at 1 p.m. I'm going to do this. You say at 2 p.m. I'm going to do this. Or you can say between Asr and Maghrib I'm going to do this. Between Dhuhr and Asr I'm going to do this. You see how time is already divided up for us? So we make a schedule on when to do things. Our whole salah is scheduled. Right? Our prayers is scheduled. Right? Hajj is scheduled. Ramadan is scheduled. It's on the calendar, marked. Right? Jummah is scheduled. It's on the calendar, marked. We should live that life too. Outside of just what we are currently used to, take your daily tasks, put it on a schedule. You won't have to remember what you have to do. And if you can't do it, let's say something came up at that time. You make a decision. Is whatever that came up more important than what this task that has to be done? If it is, do it. And reschedule that task that you wanted to do earlier. You understand? So you're never forgetting what you have to do. You never have to think about what you have to do, and it's already written down. Okay, that's one of the best ways you can free up your time. Number 2, downtime at work. Don't let it go to waste. Okay? A big plague that we are experiencing intellectually is social media. Yes, there's good that comes out of it. You can go on Facebook and see lectures, or YouTube and see lectures, and so on and so forth. You can learn about Islam, you can learn about, a lot of things, everything. Right? It's at our fingertips. But for a lot of people, there's more harm. Okay? And I'm just saying, be cautious with that time. Social media can drain time, really drain time, right? Really drain time. And before a person knows it, time's up. They have to do the next thing that they're supposed to do, right? You get up for Fajr, you pray your Fajr, you decide to do some dhikr. Okay, before I recite Quran or do dhikr, let me just check Facebook, right? Or Reddit or YouTube or Twitter. And before you know it, oh man, breakfast time, right? I gotta eat breakfast. Or I miss breakfast, I gotta go to work, right? Before you know it. So just be very, very careful with that. One of the tips I can give you regarding social media, that includes your emails, right? That includes checking emails. That includes checking your texts. Is you designate a time in the day. You say between 12 and 12:30, for example, or 3 and 3:30, or 3 and 4. That time period, I'm going to answer my emails. I'm going to check social media. I'm going to do whatever I have to do. And outside that time period, you don't even think about it. Right? And if you can avoid it, even better. Even better, you have more time to yourself. The transportation to work, to and from work or to and from school, right? I said I used to go 1 hour to 1 hour and a half. What time is it? I can't even see the clock. Okay, I think we have time. 1 hour to 1 hour and a half. Okay? Don't waste that time listening to nasheeds. And I'm not saying that it's haram, right? Shaitan's gonna make you do things that are halal and make you miss out on things that are better for you. Instead of listening to that nasheed, or worse, music, or even 10-10, right? You can listen to 10 for 10 minutes and hear about the day, right? Or sports, right? You can listen to sports a long time. I don't do that, but I know some people, sports all day, all night, right? Instead of wasting that time that you're traveling, you use that to learn about Islam. You use that to make dhikr. You use that to listen to Quran, right? When you're listening to Quran, if you listen to it enough, you're going to memorize it. Sooner or later, you'll be like, oh man, I know this surah by heart because I heard it 10,000 times, right? That's the case. That's what's going to happen. You commute to school, you commute to work, same thing. We have headphones. There's Wi-Fi on the buses, right? Don't lose that time because it adds up. That 1 hour commuting, it's like you're sitting down 1 hour and studying, for example, or learning. I mean, it may not be to that degree, or it may be. Okay, everybody's different. But it's important. You need to benefit from that time. Other things are, you can't run around without having an idea of what you need to accomplish. You have to have a set of things you want to accomplish. Otherwise, you're not going to get anything accomplished. So you say, I want to memorize the Quran. An example, this is one accomplishment I want to make. Number 2, I want to get good grades, so I have to study for these classes. These are another accomplishments I want to make. Number 3, I want to excel at work, so I want to, be prepared, or I want to be, ahead of everybody at work, so you prepare for that. What time is Isha here, by the way? 8. Okay, alhamdulillah. It's 7:10, right? Yeah, 7:10. Okay. All right. So you prepare. So you make a you have a set of goals that you want to accomplish, and those goals, don't just say I want to accomplish this. I want to accomplish this. I want to accomplish this. I'm telling you from experience, you're not going to get anywhere. You take that goal and you say, okay, this goal has to be accomplished by this date. And how am I going to do it? I'm going to break it up this way. Instead of cramming everything, you break it up into little sessions. Okay, so you take that, okay? And inshallah, this is just the best tips that I feel like are really good tips are going to help increase the time. Obviously, the number one tip, the best tip is you do it sincerely for the sake of Allah, and you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help to increase the blessings in our time, okay? And to accept it, of course. This is very important. This is the first and foremost. After that is everything else. I mentioned you can add to that, you can take away from it, you can modify it to what works for you. Okay? All right. So what I wanted to say was, if we free up time, how do we best implement that time? What do we use that time for? And would you agree that using that time to worship Allah is the best thing you can do? I would agree as well. Using that time to worship Allah is the best thing you can do. Okay? And worshiping Allah, there's so many ways you can worship Allah. And we're going to get to that inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. that He did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship Allah. Except to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you know how people say, what's my purpose? You know, people that don't know Islam, what's the purpose of life? But in Islam, Allah says, your purpose is to worship Allah. Right? My purpose is to worship my Creator. Okay? And this worship can be done in so many ways. Inshallah, I hope I can explain. Alright. So I asked you this question, I asked you to think about it. How can I take that 8 hours that I sleep and turn it into ibadah? How can I take the 8 hours that I go to work and turn it into ibadah? How can I take that 1 hour, 2 hours that I eat and turn it into ibadah? Go ahead.
Well, one of the ways, maybe you can join the Jama'ah for Fajr.
Okay.
And Isha, it'll count as
that's very good. Jazakallah khair, that's very, very good, okay?
Yeah.
Praying in Jama'ah at Fajr and Isha time will count as praying the entire night. Excellent point. Very, very good. What else? Something easy than that. You make the intention. Jazakallah khair. The intention, so important. So important. Okay? Prophet said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. Right? That deeds are considered by their intentions. Your good deeds, the value and the reward of your good deeds are based on your intentions. And the person will get what they have intended. Okay? When we go to sleep, if we have the intention that I need this sleep to recover, so I can worship Allah, that's ibadah. That's ibadah, right? Because it's hard to worship Allah when you're exhausted. Right? Your mind may not be in the right mind. You might be tired, thinking of bed, thinking of that warm blanket. But you sleep, you get your rest, you're refreshed, you can get up for tahajjud. No problem. That means that you sleep early, to whatever time you need. You get up for Fajr, no problem. You understand? This intention to sleep, because sleep is such a habit of ours. We don't even think about it, we knock out. Right? We just go to bed. This is the time to go to bed. Okay, I'm going to bed. But if you just made that intention that I'm going to bed so I can recover, because that's what sleep is. It's recovery. It recovers our mind, our body. So I'm going to sleep so I can recover, so I can worship Allah. Bam. Reward there, inshallah. Same goes for work. Provided we're not doing haram in our jobs. That's important too. So same goes for work. I'm going to work so that I can provide for my family as a good deed for the sake of Allah. You understand? People provide for their family just because they want to provide for their family. Some people don't even provide for their family. You know? So now you change that intention, I'm going to work so I can take care of my family. That's a deed. That's a good deed. That's sadaqah. That's charity. That's charity. The money you spent on your family, that's charity. You understand? Even if you're buying them, things that you may not think is charity. Right? You buy your wife a necklace. That increases your love between each other. Right? That's important. That's important in Islam. The household stays happy. That's very important. You understand? So you just change that intention, and then inshallah you get the reward. Very easy way to get reward. And you can add on top of that by praying salah in the Fajr and Isha in the Masjid, right? And doing dhikr on your free time. You can add on top of that. But that's just bonus after bonus. You understand? So although if time is very important and we can lose it so quickly, just by having an sincere intention, we can benefit from it. From things that doesn't even seem like we can benefit from. Right? I'm going to eat this food so that I can focus, so that I can have energy to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to go exercise at the gym so I can get strong and have energy to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You understand? I'm going to go to therapy so I can get better. I'm going to go to the doctor so I can stay healthy, so I can use this health to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I can use this wealth to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You understand? To gain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? This is just by the mindset, just by thinking about it differently. You're not doing anything more than that. Then you add more to that by doing the extra things. And the proof that even sleeping can be a reward. I mean, we mentioned the hadith on the niyyah, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions sleep and night as rest in multiple verses in the Quran. Right? He says, for example, and it is He who makes the night a covering for you and the sleep as a state of rest. This rest is to recover, right? And makes the day a nashura, which is meaning that that you travel, you do work, and you do whatever you have to get done, right? So this is a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And another verse, for example, he says, and we have made your sleep a thing for rest. Your sleep is a rest. And we have made the night as a covering. And we have made the day for livelihood. All of these things Allah has given us. So we can take this sleep, this work, this rest, this eating, this traveling, and we can turn it into gaining reward just by our intentions, inshaAllah. Okay? So that's another life hack, I hope, to help us get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, now, the next question I want to ask you is, okay, so we established that with our intentions, we can get reward for worshipping Allah, even when we are sleeping, even when we are sleeping, even when we are eating, even when we're going to work, okay? My next question is, when we free up time, we said ibadah is the best way we should spend that time. Which ibadah should we do? What do you think? Just call out the answer. Which ibadah, which worship should we do? And really there's no wrong answers. There's no wrong answers. But some worship has more value than others. So what do you think? A lot of scholars stated that this particular type of worship has the most value. What do you think it is? What would you do? And it's not wrong. Just call an answer. Your free time to worship Allah. What is the first thing that comes to your mind that fulfills that desire to worship Allah? Tell me. Anybody? Anybody? I hate Mondays too. I had a weekend off and now I gotta go to work. Mondays are tough. Anybody want to try? Okay. All right. Well, just to save time, you can do many variety of ibadah. We mentioned dhikr. You can pray, right? You can read the Quran, so on and so forth. All of these are good ibadah to fill your time. But a lot of the scholars stated that the best ibadah a person can do is seek knowledge. Seek knowledge. Now this is important. You sitting in a lecture or learning from whatever sources you learn from, and seeking knowledge about Islam, right? A lot of scholars have said this is the best type of ibadah that you can do. And really, it is so important. I'll tell you why. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, my servant does not draw near to me with anything more beloved by me. My servant does not come closer to me with anything that is more beloved to me. Allah saying this, except what? Except what? The obligations, the fard, right? The obligations Allah has made upon us is very beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, and then He continues to say, and my slave draws closer to me, okay, by the extra deeds, okay? Your sunnah salah, your nawafil salah, those things, okay? But the thing is, if you don't have knowledge, how do you know how to pray? How do you know how to make wudu? So the core of all this worship, the start, the foundation of it, is knowledge. Is gaining knowledge. Okay? So this is why, and I'll give you more examples. This is why, one of the reasons why the scholars have said in the past that seeking knowledge is one of the best forms of ibadah. Okay? Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah, he said, nothing is equal to knowledge for ones whose intention is correct. Nothing is equal, meaning no act of ibadah is equal to knowledge except ones whose intention is correct. Imam Ahmad said this. They asked him, how? He said, by making the intention to remove ignorance from oneself and from others. A person who doesn't know how to pray goes to seek knowledge. Isn't this knowledge, this seeking of the knowledge, imperative to his prayer? You don't know how to pray, you have to learn. And you teach it to others. Right? You don't know how to make wudu, you have to learn. Right? We can't be at a state where just because our parents taught it to us or our grandparents taught it to us, and God knows where they got the information from, we follow it blindly. This is a big problem. This is a big problem. Every single one of us is obligated. When Prophet ﷺ said that it is an obligation for the Muslims to learn, to seek knowledge, right? Whatever is made obligatory upon us, we're obligated to learn about the knowledge on how to do it. Salah is obligatory. We have to learn how to do the salah. Wudu is obligatory before the salah. So it doesn't count if your wudu is wrong. We have to learn how to make wudu, right? Fasting is important. It's obligatory. We have to learn what is how to fast. What invalidates the fast? Okay? When do we start the fast? When do we break the fast? We have to learn all of this. Okay? Hajj is obligatory to those who can afford it. We have to learn how to make Hajj. You understand? So everything that is obligatory for us, we have to learn about this. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, in his famous book, Majmu' al-Fatawa, he said that seeking knowledge is worship. Seeking knowledge, just the act of you seeking knowledge, sitting here, and I hope I'm giving you knowledge, is an act of worship. When you listen to a lecture, it's an act of worship. When you decide to pay for a class, you take that intention and you say, I'm paying and I'm giving this money so I can seek knowledge, right? You add to that intention by saying, this money that I'm paying to this facility is going to help run it so other students can benefit from it. You understand? You add on to that intention. Well, this seeking knowledge is worship. When I was younger, one of my friends, and this is actually Ust.Zakir, anyways, I'm going to just skip on the details. But he told me, the Imam at the Masjid told him that the students learning are worshipping Allah just by sitting and learning. Right? And he said, even more so than the person praying the Sunnah. This is what the Imam at the Masjid told him. And I was so confused. How is that possible? Well, this is the reason why. That seeking of knowledge, okay, it's ibadah, and it allows you to perfect your obligations, and it allows you to teach others to perfect their obligations. You understand? And this is beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our obligations are beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what brings us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibn Taymiyyah also stated that knowledge is the greatest ibadah because Allah pairs it with, what does He pair knowledge with in the Quran? This is a very open question, but He pairs it with jihad. We're talking about jihad. Okay, like the Muslim Ummah is defending themselves or spreading. That verse, there's a verse regarding it where Allah pairs the two. And He says in the Quran, this is in Surah Tawbah, and it is not proper for the believers to go forth all at once. Talking about jihad. For there should be a separate group from every division. From every group that goes out, there should be a group from them that stays back in order to obtain understanding in the religion and warn their people when they return to them that they may be cautious. He is saying that it is not proper that everybody goes, but rather a group from them should stay back, learn the knowledge, and teach them when they return. He is putting these two together. And the scholars have also stated that seeking knowledge is also a kind of jihad for Allah. And this is very important. Right? Because jihad is also of the nafs, seeking knowledge is also a type of jihad. And especially in these modern times when bid'ah have become very rampant. Okay? Have become very rampant. This is very important, okay? You know, I stated that it's not enough for us to accept what our parents have taught us. Okay, unless they really, really taught it to us well. Or what our grandparents have taught us in our obligations. Okay? And the reason why is that there is going to be missing information for you. I'll just give you personal examples. You know, growing up, we were taught that we had to pray. Okay? And we were taught that we had to that we had to recite the Quran in the prayer. Okay? And we were taught by, thank you. We were taught how to recite the Fatiha by listening. Okay? How many people have learned Fatiha but don't even know how to pronounce the surah? Completely. How many people? I know of actually I don't know the person. A friend of mine knows this person who told me that he wanted to get ijaza, which is the authority to teach a certain topic. And this ijaza was in Quran. So he memorized the Quran and he traveled to get this ijaza. And the time he spent there, the only thing he came back with the ijaza to recite Surah Fatiha. He had to relearn how to recite Surah Fatiha. And this is a pillar of the prayer. Right? Without Fatiha, the prayer doesn't count. You understand? So he came back expecting at least one juz to get an ijazah and just one juz in juz amma. That's what he expected realistically. But he only got ijazah to teach Fatiha. That's it. Right? So this is what I mean. That it's not enough to just take it at face value from somebody that teaches us. Because there is a lot of room for error. And there is a lot of room to fix that error, right? So we have to take it upon ourselves to learn the knowledge on how to make wudu, how to pray, how to do all these obligations. Okay? So this is so essential in today's time. Because if you look around the Muslim world, starting after the rightly guided caliphs, right? Islam started to go on a decline. It went on a decline. And the reason why is because ideologies that were un-Islamic started to infiltrate Islam. Philosophy, Greek philosophy infiltrated Islam, right? The core belief of the Muslims were shaken because there were people in prominent positions that would teach the wrong thing. And scholars have come and they've done their best to preserve the religion. Right? And we have the religion thanks to them. I mean, thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, but because of their efforts, because of their deciding to make sure that we get the religion, right? If they didn't come, Islam would be completely different. There was a period of time where the ruler of the Muslim world ordered people to believe that the Quran was created. And if they didn't believe this, they were executed. And the reason why they were saying this is because of the philosophy from the Greeks that seeped in. So some of the scholars stood their ground. They refused to budge. And they were executed. Other scholars, and this is allowed, to protect themselves, would put their hands on the Quran, look at their hand, and say, this is created. And they're talking about their hand. You understand? They are not, to the oppressive rulers, it appears that they're talking about the Quran, but they're really talking about the hand. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah, he stood his ground as well. But because he was famous, they couldn't kill him. So he maintained his ground. And because of him and the scholars that maintained their ground, today we have the understanding that the Quran is not created. You understand? If it wasn't for the scholars and these people seeking knowledge, we would not be the Muslims we are today. Meaning in terms of our aqidah, our beliefs, our Islamic beliefs. You understand? This is why they stated that though a person may engage in jihad, and we're talking about jihad at that time, right? Their benefit may not be greater than the scholar. And in many cases, this is the truth. Because what we know about our religion and about Allah and about how to worship and about our beliefs, our core beliefs, is because of these scholars who learned Islam. And we owe more to them than, let's say, the people who had jihad at the time. The scholars divided Islam, the history of Islam, in many divisions. And one of the easy to grasp division is this. Islam, during the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, that's when the foundation was established, where revelation came and everything that was done was from revelation. Right? The Prophet ﷺ would say something, it was, first and foremost, the Quran would be revealed to address situations, okay? Address questions, address scenarios that occurred at the time. Or the Prophet ﷺ gave his, would explain something from his, and if it was correct, Allah would leave it alone, okay? But if it needed to be corrected, Allah would send revelation to correct it, okay? One example we know from Surah Abasa, when the Prophet ﷺ was approached by a blind companion, blind Sahabi, who wanted to learn more about Islam. But the Prophet ﷺ was late to a meeting with the leaders of the Quraysh, who he hoped that he can guide them to Islam. And when that companion came, he was busy, he frowned and turned away. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately addressed that. In Surah Abasa wa tawalla, he frowned and turned away. Saying that this believer has more right to the knowledge than the non-believers, than the mushrikun. Right? That he has more right to his attention of the Prophet ﷺ. So the sunnah, we say, is revelation. And it's revelation because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed, so there's certain instances where Allah revealed to the Prophet ﷺ and He expressed it in His own words. Other instances, the Prophet ﷺ explained something or expressed something and Allah allowed it. And that by His allowance is revelation. Meaning if He did it wrong or something was, if there was a better way to do it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would send revelation to do it a better way. Okay? So the Quran was revelation and the Sunnah is revelation. They're both revelation. Okay? So this was the foundation, the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when revelation was coming until he passed away. And then after that, it was establishment of the religion by the righteous caliphs. And after that, it was the building phase. This was around the 8th century. Then the flowering phase, and these are all ebbs and ups and downs of the ummah in terms of knowledge. Flowering in the middle of the 10th century, consolidation in the middle of the 13th century, until we come to today. What do they call today? It's such a sad thing. They call it stagnation and decline. You go from foundation, establishment, building, flowering, consolidation to stagnation and decline. How true is that? Stagnation and decline. And this started from the siege of Baghdad by the Mongols in the 13th century, middle of the 13th century, in the year 1258 until today. This includes the rise and fall of the Ottoman Empire. And the reason why it's stagnation and decline is this. Because the Muslims have divided into groups and factions. And nationalism and blind following has taken these groups and led them to the direction they're gone. And on top of that, theology from the outside has entered into our main beliefs. And on top of that, colonialism came in, took away Islamic rules and regulations, and implemented European rules and regulations. Our whole ummah today is in complete chaos. You understand? And this is why knowledge is so important, especially for our youths, because we are at a stage of stagnation and decline. It is so upsetting that we are categorized in this time period. We're in this time period. We need people to take that and go the other direction. We need students of knowledge to go and learn Islam, learn the knowledge, right? Teach it to the mass. It's so important. When you go to Umrah or Hajj, why are people elbowing each other or shoving each other? When you go to, people are rushing to touch the Kaaba, they're trampling over each other. People are rushing to pray near the Prophet ﷺ's grave, you're going to get your turn. Why do you have to push that elderly person? Why do you have to push anybody at all? Right? Why are people acting so violently when something happens that we don't like? Why are people killing each other over things like drawings? It's fine to not like it. We are not supposed to like it. But we don't act like that. This is not how we act. In the time of the scholars, when I mentioned that they were commanded by the Caliph at the time, this is in the middle of the Umayyad time and going down, I think around the 8th century and going down. When the thoughts of the philosophy came in their midst, along with that, haram activities came in. See, in the beginning, they were fearful of Allah and they learned the religion. Of course, the rightly guided caliphs did that, but even in the beginning of the Umayyad dynasty. But near the end, these theologies came in, corrupted their minds, and they allowed things like women dancing and music and haram things in their court. Right? And the scholars, what they did was, they didn't want to be in this presence. So they would leave that situation and they would teach. You understand? That's the action the Muslim takes. See, in the beginning, when the caliphs were knowledgeable and had Islamic knowledge, they stopped deviated ideologies in its tracks. Either by telling that person teaching it to stop, and if they didn't stop, then they would have punishment. Right? They would be punished, and that would be usually, execution. Okay? Either they stopped, and if they didn't stop teaching this wrong ideology, execution. And this is how they would do it. And so the scholars at that time didn't have to worry too much. But eventually, the opposite happened. So the scholars, you see, they didn't act violently. They didn't take the law into their own hands. You understand? Rather, they taught the masses. And they used intellectual arguments to help people understand. You understand? So why do today people, Muslims, act so violently to things that of course we don't like? A non-Muslim asked me this question. Why do Muslims act so violently? And they act violently, you know. And the reason that I can come up with is lack of knowledge. Right? Lack of knowledge makes a person shove that elderly person while making tawaf. Right? Because they don't have the knowledge to have the proper etiquettes. Or shove the person, or cut the person in line, or insult the person, or fight, or act violently. This is lack of knowledge. So this is why the scholars have stated that seeking knowledge is, and some of them said it is one of the greatest ibadah, or rather it is the greatest ibadah that a person can do. Especially today, where the Muslim world is, right? This knowledge is so valuable. So this is why I was so happy to see so many youths. I think they left because it's getting late, or maybe they're still here. This light's blinding me. I can't see any place that's dark. So this is why I said I was so happy to see the youth here, the young kids here, because it's so important that us, and it's important for the next generation as well, to seek this knowledge. So this is where I wanted to kind of end this talk at. We talked about time, its value, that we are at a loss, at a khusr, which means that this is a place that is like the worst end. That's what it means. Where end where somebody gets that you wouldn't even want to be near, that you would wonder, wow, how did that happen to that person? That's what khusr means. That's what the state we are in. And Allah is emphasizing this. And we talked about managing time. Last time we talked about really kind of practical ways to manage it. Today we talked about a little bit about that too. And the main point today that of today's talk is, what do we utilize that time with? Okay? And what I wanted to say is seeking knowledge. Seeking knowledge. Okay? Because, first of all, seeking knowledge is very, very enlightening. Right? It's revitalizing. You're learning. You're learning things you didn't know. You're becoming better in your worship of Allah. You're becoming closer to Allah. What makes it better is knowing that this is ibadah. What makes it better is knowing that some of the scholars consider this the best ibadah. Right? So now the thirst for knowledge should be there. That's the goal. Then inshallah, all of us, to the best of our capabilities, we go and we utilize that free time that we make in seeking knowledge. Now, there's a Sahih hadith. Shaykh Al-Albani, rahimahullah, he classes as Sahih. This has been recorded by Imam Tirmidhi, rahimahullah. He said that, verily Allah, His angels, and the inhabitants of the heavens and the earth, even the ant in its hole, and even the fish, send blessings upon the one who teaches the people good things. Sends blessings. There's also creation, right? Sends blessing on the one who teaches the people good things. We talked about in our course, He is knowing Allah. We do this on Sunday this semester at Etiquette, at the Etiquette Institute. And we said that, oh shoot, I forgot, hold on, just escaped my mind. All right, I'll get back to it inshallah. It just escaped my mind. But anyways, so this is why scholars like Shaykh Uthaymeen rahimahullah stated that the scholars and the people seeking knowledge will benefit the ummah more so than people making jihad. Okay, now the Prophet ﷺ said that whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes good for someone, what does He do? He bestows upon him the understanding of the deen. Okay? It's very valuable. And a very, very wonderful hadith. Whoever takes a path upon which to obtain knowledge, whoever takes a path to gain knowledge, Allah makes the path to paradise easy for them. Allah makes the path to paradise easy for them. Now, this is another proof that the act of seeking knowledge is ibadah. There's no doubt about it. Because what makes us go to paradise, what is it? It's ibadah. It's worship of Allah. Worship of Allah makes us go to paradise. So the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever seeks the path to knowledge, Allah makes the path to paradise easy for them. What more do we need? What more do we need to focus to learn now? Okay, now I'm going to do my best to seek knowledge. Right? And this ummah needs it now. We are at a state of stagnation and decline. We need to recover from that. We need to recover from that. And before I forget, in terms of seeking knowledge, okay, and we'll address this more inshallah. I want to actually go forward every month, and we're going to talk about the etiquettes of the student of knowledge. All right? It sounds very scholastic, but it's really, really practical. This was a course taught by Sheikh Bilal Phillips, and I'm kind of giving you an abridged version. So if you want the full thing, you would hear his course. Okay, the same title. So I wanted to talk about this because these etiquettes that the students of knowledge should have will change your life completely. It'll change the way you think. It'll change the way you behave. It'll change the way you see what you see as important and what you see as less important. Right? It'll take you from being a worshipper into being a little bit more than that, much more than that. So before I ended this today, the thing is, in terms of seeking knowledge, the path to seeking knowledge, and we'll talk about this more next time, intention is extremely important. Intention is extremely important, okay? Because the first person that's going to be in the hellfire, from the hadith, I'm paraphrasing, is the scholar. It's a scholar. And they're going to say that I seek this knowledge for you, Allah. But that wasn't the reason why. They seek the knowledge for the praise of people or for whatever worldly gains. Right? At the time of when I talked about the Khalifas that had been corrupted, they used to have scholars of Shafi madhab argue with scholars of Hanafi madhab to see who was right. And they would, and this is because, I'm just trying to emphasize that their intentions have changed. Because they would argue to prove their point, ignoring the haqq, ignoring the truth. This is not the way that we should do it. So we have to have the intention for the sake of Allah. That knowing that this seeking of knowledge, first and foremost, is ibadah, is worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Then we take that worship, this knowledge that we learn, and we have the intention to preserve the sharia. The sharia, what it means is basically Islam, our way of life, the revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran and the Sunnah, and the obligations and the prohibitions in it, that's the sharia. So the goal of the student of knowledge is to, one, you're learning knowledge for the sake of Allah because it's ibadah, not for anybody else, not for money. Shaitan's going to come and say, hey man, how are you going to spend that diploma in masters in whatever, fiqh, and gain money or have an income, right? It's not about gaining money, it's not about earning the pleasures of people or the likes of people, not about Facebook likes, not about how many followers a person has on Twitter, okay? It's not it. These are things that will corrupt the intention. It's about worshipping Allah, preserving the Sharia because you're learning it, so you're going to be a tool to preserve it, defending it when it needs to be defended, and implementing it. Implementing it in your actions and teaching it to others. That's implementation of the Sharia. Okay? So even though we're talking about the importance of seeking knowledge, I don't want anybody to forget the importance of the intention behind it first and foremost. So inshallah, I'm going to end here. Brother, you had a question? Yeah. I'll try my best to answer it. Yeah.
You mentioned the etiquettes of students of knowledge. I'm aware of certain people that might have studied, but on their own, through different books, through different interpretations or what have you. I'm aware that you would need a teacher to actually go forth with this. And can you clarify the importance of having a teacher to learn this information? That's
Okay.
the first question.
Okay.
Actually, let's just keep it at the first question.
I
inshallah,
appreciate it.
next time. Yeah.
I hate questions, man. I hate questions because if I get it wrong, I'm accountable for it. So if I make a mistake on this answer, forgive me and correct me so that I may correct everybody else next time. So his question was this, I'm going to paraphrase it, regarding the person that gains knowledge through reading the books. Okay? The scholars have said that this is not the way to gain knowledge. Sure, you can learn a certain amount of things. There's no doubt about it. But to understand the book, to understand what the intention of the author of the book, you understand? You have to sit down with somebody to teach it to you. Because you may read something and misinterpret what the author meant. A very easy example I can give you. I'm forgetting the name of this scholar, but his son asked him, he said, this is just an analogy. His son asked him, he said, when I see you giving a lecture, I see the people crying. Okay? And when I see those same people in other lectures, I don't see them crying. Why is that? So if you're reading this in a book, the reply is this. The father, who's a scholar, a famous scholar, he said that the wailing of a bereaved woman or bereaved person is not the same as the wailing of the person you pay. So like he's talking about an example where a person has a loss, a person passed away. Their heart cries. There used to be, or maybe there are some places around the world where people pay other people to come cry at their funerals to show that this person was beloved and so on and so forth. This is a very bad evil action. So he said that the crying of the bereaved person is not the same as the crying as the person that's being paid to do so. So if you just read this at face value, it seems that he is bragging that his teaching is sincere. And because his teaching is sincere, the people cry. Somebody may interpret it this way. But rather, he is not doing that. Instead, he is implying that what is sincere is going to reach the other hearts. He isn't bragging about his own sincerity. He's giving an example to his son to say that what is really sincere is going to reach the other's hearts. Okay? This is just an analogy. So similarly, when a person reads a book, okay, especially like books like Aqidah, right, which is basically our core beliefs, right, our creed. First and foremost, you may read a book where a person has an opinion which is not correct, okay, though they may be prominent, right? There are universities in the Muslim world that teach regarding the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They say they don't exist, right? So, and these are very famous universities. So just an example. So you need to have a teacher to clarify what the meaning of that book is, what the author intended in that book, and on top of that, that teacher is going to give examples that the book couldn't give, meaning not enough time, not enough space. They're going to enlighten the student even more. Okay? So it is, the scholars do not recommend a person to study on their own. Very, very famous example is the Meccan Incident. Meccan Incident. So if you don't know what the Meccan Incident was, we have like 10 minutes left. A group of people wanted to implement the Sharia so much. They were so, what do you call it? Zealous, meaning like, so they had this desire to implement the Sharia so much in Saudi Arabia. And they did not like what the kings were doing. So they were against the government. They isolated themselves from the Jama'ah, the group. They found a town out in the desert somewhere, and they established themselves there. Once they isolated themselves from scholars, okay, and they themselves studied, Shaitan was able to get to them. Shaitan was able to get to them. And there was a famous student at the time I forgot the name of the university. I'll remember next time. But it was from the university in Saudi. I forgot the name. What's the name of the? No. Or it doesn't matter. So he studied there, and he was really good at giving speeches. So people used to come to his khutbahs and crowd the streets. And the government used to be afraid of him. They made him stop giving speeches in one place and travel around the country or around the cities. And then to a point where they even banned his talks. Okay? Somehow, this student of knowledge somehow found his way to that town and became convinced by the people there, because they told him that he was the Mahdi. Because the leader of that group said his sister saw a dream, she was marrying the Mahdi, and she said, that's the man I was marrying. And he had the same name as the Prophet Muhammad, his name was Muhammad. His father had the same name as the Prophet's father, Abdullah. His mother had the same name as the Prophet Muhammad's mother, Amina. And he became convinced that he was the Mahdi. So they came to the Kaaba and they seized it. They seized the Kaaba. This is known as the Meccan Incident. Okay, of course, they were caught, put to trial. The leader of the group was executed. So when a person decides to read and seek knowledge by themselves, the dangers of shaitan is very, 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 very real. Shaitan's going to influence them. I mean, I'm not saying this is the case for everybody. So don't stamp everybody with the same stamp. But this is a very big risk. Okay? So it is not proper to study by yourself. Rather, you have to have a teacher. Okay, in today's time, we have lots of universities, right? We have a Etiquette Institute, for example, right? There's lots of online universities you can attend, right? So you don't have any excuse to study by yourself, okay? Is that okay? Does that answer your question? Okay, alhamdulillah. Yes, brother.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Have you ever had any experience when praying was so hard at your workplace, and what did you do?
Okay. All right, my brothers and sisters were having tough time praying at work, okay? You have to establish that you're Muslim. You tell your coworkers, hey, I pray 5 times a day. So sometimes you'll see me praying in the corner. Don't be alarmed. I just have to pray. This is what I tell my coworkers. I tell them straight up. When I interview for a job, first thing I tell them, I have to pray. Alright? I have to go to Jummah. So I'm going to use my lunch break to go to pray my Friday prayers. You know what they say? No problem. I've never experienced a time in my life that a person said, no, you cannot pray. This is a lawsuit. So nobody has an excuse to say, I have a difficult time praying at work. You tell your colleagues, hey, I pray 5 times a day. Maybe they'll ask you more questions about it. But they'll know you're praying. And if they come to you and they see you praying, you'll hear them say, I'm so sorry. And they'll walk away. They'll whisper and they'll walk away. You understand? So don't let shaitan tell you that you can't pray at work. Don't let shaitan tell you this. If you have human resources, you go to human resources. You say, hey, listen, I pray. You look at the hospitals, right? A place where you have doctors, right? Nurses, PAs, NPs, educated people. What do they have in most hospitals, if not all? They have a place of prayer, right? The Muslims, they congregate and they make Jum'ah in that place of prayer. They know that the Muslims have to pray there. My father used to work at a hotel. There were a lot of Muslims there. And guess what? They gave them a wudu area. They built a wudu area for the Muslims. They built a prayer area for the Muslims. Waldorf Astoria. Right? So you don't be afraid and don't be ashamed and don't let shaitan tell you that you can't pray at work. Don't. Because you have the truth. You understand? You have been blessed with Islam when your coworkers may not be. You have been blessed by knowing your purpose in life while your coworkers may not be. You have been blessed with the opportunity to get into Jannah and the various ways that Allah has made and excuses He has given us and the various blessings He has given us to make it easy for us to get into Jannah. You have that blessing. So don't be ashamed of your blessing, because your blessing, you are on the truth. You are on the haqq. Don't be ashamed of this. And tell your coworkers, I have to pray. Right? And use your lunch time to pray. Everybody has to have lunch at work. You may use it any way you want. You may eat. You may continue working. You may leave early. I mean, some people may. You may go out. You may tweet, text, Instagram, right? Make phone calls. You have that time at work to pray. So do not let shaitan tell you otherwise. And I think we're going to end it here. I apologize. But it's time for Isha. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother, if somebody else had a question, email it to me or text it to me. And inshallah, next time we come, next month, I'm going to do my best to address it. Okay? So I don't